Success is defined as the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. That is the English definition of success. And failure is defined as the lack of success. Failure is actually easier. So we're first getting that baseline. That's the English definition of success and failure. But now let us talk about how society defines success and how it defines failure. I'm going to just share what it is that I have compiled. Solomon, you can chip in as I'm sharing. So I found that in society, we generally define success using things, position. We define it externally. Yeah. So success is usually defined as an education level. The person who has a PhD is more successful than the one who has a master's, is more successful than the one who has 1 degree, is more successful than the one who has a diploma, who is more successful than the one who has a certificate, who is more successful than the one who never ever saw a blackboard, or who saw a blackboard but was not able to continue, or as in failed to attain a certificate. So that is one. We define it using education. Now, again, that is something external. The second one is status. Let us even first talk about it. The status of, what do I call it? Coupling, called marriage, marital status. The person who is married is usually considered more successful than the one who is single. It doesn't matter what you attained. Married is more successful than single. Then we go to, in the marriage, children now. The person who has children in the marriage is more successful, as in the marriage that has children, is more successful than the marriage that has, call it failed. We even say they have failed to have a child. So the marriage that hasn't had a child, whether it is through the failing to have a child or whether it's because you've decided that we do not want children, you're still considered as a failed couple. So that's how we define success. Another one, now you both have children. The ones who have managed to have sons are more successful than the ones who have failed to have a son. They have failed to have an heir, because somehow having the boys makes you more successful than the ones who have had the girls. Now, the other one is in, I think, economic status. This one I found very, very amusing as I thought about it. So society usually considers employment, having a job, as being successful. Having a job, but starting a business. Corporate settled, as in we have the levels: doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, and then corporate job, a job where you wear a suit and you have an office and you have a car and you wake up early and you, as in, you look serious. You really look serious. However, having a business is only considered successful if you are super wealthy. You have to really, really attain some, I don't know what we even call it, success in the business, but it's like you have to really, really have a lot of money for people to begin to consider you successful. But still, it's like the job person is treated with more respect and more honor than you. So if you've started your business, you've just started, you first year, second year, third year, your family is still saying, but aren't there any jobs? You're trying to grow this. You're trying to grow this thing. Maybe even at the stage where you're earning the same amount of money in your business as you are earning perhaps at someone at the same level as you, but they are still like, but isn't there a job? There are jobs. They're still sending you job ads. They're still telling you about openings here and there, because having a business is not considered as successful as having a job. It doesn't matter if the job is small, if the job you earn little, somehow society considers that as success. Now, those are my compilations. Do you have any to add?
Interestingly, when you were speaking about marriage, children, all that, in the African society, when someone dies, and I've had it a lot in my circles at home, and the first thing they ask, hey, okay, I can't say this in Luganda because it's going into, but
Say it in
did
Luganda.
they give Bazalako? Did they get my, that thing, like, you didn't even give birth, you have failed. Even, and so it's so interesting, the things that we have, I think, labeled
Yeah.
as success, and then we put pressure on us, I haven't attained, and even when you have one child is wrong. Like, even, like, I hear it so many in my circle, see, she only gave birth to one child, why? It's like you have to, like, every level has it's like as if there's a standard. Thank you. Every level there's a standard of success.
Hmm.
And it's like as if you really never attain. You never attain. You never attain. Yeah. So it's so interesting how we as kids, it's so interesting that it's drilled down, consciously and subconsciously. When you're growing up, you see it and then you're told about it. This is success. This is success. This is success. And that really just always kind of taints our future, taints the decisions we make. It taints so much. Then you reach 50, and then you say, oh gosh, I have failed at life. And yet never know you've really succeeded. Like, if you put everything down as a 50, you have succeeded so much. But because of society, it says, no, you haven't succeeded, which is sad sometimes.
When you talk about the African society, now you're actually making me think about something. So in our culture, my personal culture, the Japs, the Jupadola, from the east of Uganda, if you die and you haven't given birth, you're buried as a child. You're not given the honor. You're buried as a child, because what usually happens is a man who has had a home, there are some days you're given days of mourning. A woman who's had kids, you're given days of mourning. And if you're a woman who's had kids, you're buried in a busuti. If you haven't given birth, one, you're buried as a child. And the second thing, when you're talking about when you have one child and they're like, what is this? My grandma had 3 children and she was considered barren. because they were like, how can you have only 3 kids? I think we are better. We are much, much better right now. But you see, that is the mindset that we come from. For example, I personally have made a decision that I do not want to have children. And I have, my relatives are still scandalized. There are many who have approached me and asked questions and all that stuff. And after we have a discussion, they understand. But I keep getting new ones who are like, how can you not give birth to a child? At least one, like this, so that we see, I said, this one is Jennifer's. But I'm like, why? Why? Yeah. So I really understand that pressure. And because that is the way that we measure success, people end up harming themselves just having a child for society. The biggest one, I think, is marriage. Staying in an abusive, horrible, draining marriage because you cannot remove yourself from that status. Actually, the question is, how will they see me? I think it's best said in Uganda, but how will they see me that I am not married? As in, I'd rather be here, I'm being beaten, the person is stealing my stuff, they are calling me fool and everything, but at least I am successful in that area. So I think it's just
because when you leave, then you'll fail.
Yes. Oh my God. Then you failed. Oh my God. Then you failed. Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Wow.
Wait. Now you're reminding me of another friend of mine who lost her husband after 1 year of marriage. You remember her? A friend who lost her husband after 1 year of marriage, and she was hiding herself from people because she considered her marriage a failure because it did not last. It did not last a long time. And I was like, oh my God, that person died. How can you now say you have failed? So at times, the reason why we are talking about all this is for us to begin to think about what are we thinking subconsciously about ourselves in this regard. What are we tolerating? What are we allowing? How are we talking to ourselves about things like success and failure, especially regarding how society defines it? So I just would like us to ask ourselves those questions.